I think this is hilarious. I think it's the most ridiculous thing. Like it's peak. I don't know what else to say. Like it's just peak, right? We're gonna magic $500 billion, and we're gonna put it into a machine, and out the other end of it will come AGI, hundreds of thousands of American jobs, and the U.S. as the leader of the world again. So, don't. Step one: steal underpants.
Pretty much, dude. Hello, we are back again with another installment of the Cables to Cloud's fortnightly news segment. So on this episode, we're going to get into a few articles that we found interesting that came out over the last 2 weeks and chat about them and give some opinions, some hot takes, all around good stuff, right? My name is Chris Miles at BGP Main on Blue Sky, which I will say I seldom use. I need to make a habit out of being on there more and to be more like my big brother Tim, who is joining me on the podcast today.
Big bro, yeah.
Yeah, big bro. I'm just striving every day to be more and more like Tim.
Yeah. It's difficult. It's difficult.
It is. All right. Well, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and hop right in. So we have a few articles this week to talk about. The first one being from CRN, which is obviously a very channel-focused publication. So it's very focused on sales and channel partners and things like that, which we don't want to get too deep into. But we have a good article in here about Palo Alto Networks and their focus on why platformization is important for leveraging the full capabilities of AI. So this is an interview with Michael Corey, I believe is how you say his name, who is the channel chief at Palo Alto Networks. Like I said, he kind of talks about this concept of, where Palo Alto is going and their concept of, or not their concept, but the concept of platformization. So kind of, which I believe is really the kind of convergence of all the product offerings that they have into kind of a singular platform, which I will say does resonate with what I've seen in the market. It seems to be a lot of focus on consolidation of product portfolios and things like that. So I definitely think that they are skating towards the puck in that scenario. At the same time, though, I had to look at Palo Alto's portfolio after I looked at this article and noticed that there's the next gen firewall piece, which I don't know what exactly they're calling that. There's like core component, and then there's Prisma, and then there's Cortex. I think Cortex is the other one. I can't remember. But anyways, they still have some work to do to make it simple. Is kind of where I'm going in that scenario, but. Nonetheless, he did mention in here, obviously we're moving towards a lot of AI focused applications and things like that. And he mentioned that, the importance of a singular kind of platform in order to take full advantage of the AI offering from, whether it be a specific LLM or that particular vendor. And I do kind of see some truth in that and some merit there. I mean, it's kind of like, to me, I kind of see that as the way that people view the Apple ecosystem, right? There are benefits to being kind of a whole hog approach where everything that you live and breathe is with one vendor, one platform, so that you can, has the utmost context, has the utmost like interoperability type thing like that. So I do see some benefit there. Obviously, people have been bitching about fucking vendor lock-in for years and years at this point. So it's almost like we're kind of rotating back towards that. But I don't know, like he's obviously speaking from the vendor perspective. So that's going to be a beneficial thing. But I mean, he's not wrong. There's benefits there. So I did find that an interesting point. How about you, Tim? What do you think?
Yeah. So the platformization thing, if you ask a vendor, obviously the answer is like platformization is awesome. You know, the whole ecosystem.
It's the answer to everything.
It's the answer to everything, right? we've got an app for that, right? I mean,
Right.
it's pretty much the. What's funny is I was about to say it's kind of like the Cisco way of thinking, but actually, Cisco's kind of the anti. I mean, the anti-platformization platform, if you will. Not on purpose, right? But like, and I think they're doing some work, you know, with like XDR and like there's certainly on the security side they've been working at it, and then you know everything's Catalyst something now, so at least in name, a lot of this stuff is unified, even though it's really just a logo. But yeah, so anyway, long story short, the idea of platformization of going whole hog on a vendor, it's just logically like, oh yeah, well of course if I'm using all of this vendor's offerings, you know, of course the vendor is going to be interoperable with itself, and all the, you know, the benefits and whatnot will be there. Of course, you know, it depends on whether they acquired that object or acquired that company or acquired that product, or if they built it, you know, from scratch. But I also went to the Palo website. Like I was trying to figure out what's the difference between Prisma Cloud and Prisma Access, and like, dude, it's rough, man. Like the naming is hard. Like I actually had to go dig through a bunch of docs just to understand that I was actually looking not at remote access, but I was actually looking at like a completely new cloud platform for connectivity or something, or scanning agents or something like this. It was really hard. Not to pick on Palo Alto or Cisco too much, but the point is, I do take some issue with his like just saying as fact that like, oh well, if you want to leverage AI, if you want AI insights, like you have to, like the best way to do it is to have a single platform. I think he's what do they call it? Leading the witness a little bit, you know, on that. He's just saying it. I don't know though. Like maybe not. It's one of those things that sounds logically true, but I don't think anybody's proven that to be the case yet.
Yeah, that's just the thing. Like the logic sounds okay, but you know whether or not the fruits of that labor would show themselves, who knows, right? We're still early days on so much of this stuff. But I mean, the only thing that I will say is that the consolidation of application or platform tooling and things like that is definitely a thing. Like, for sure. I hear that quite a bit, especially in cloud, because there's so many cloud security companies that focus on maybe one little niche thing, and you kind of, you know, I talk to so many people that are using so many products, and I'm like, man, I don't know how you navigate this landscape and like have any kind of idea of what's going on at any given time unless you're consolidating this all in one area. So and then there's companies that come in and just do that, like, hey, we'll just be the consolidation piece, we'll take input from everything.
The orchestrator.
So it makes sense, but you know, who knows if that's actually how it's going to boil down, but we'll see.
Again, this guy's a channel partner guy, so you know, he's speaking it from the perspective that like, okay, well, this is also how we should enable our partners, and our partners should be using the same type of motion. So anyway.
Yep. You want partners selling every bit of the platform they can.
Exactly.
Right?
Sell the whole thing, baby.
Yeah.
So next we have an article from CIO Dive, and this one is interesting. So we all know Trump is now the president, and on his first day he signed like 26 something executive orders. One of them was an executive order to rescind the Biden administration's executive order on AI safety guardrails. So we covered a little bit of this. Well, we covered several AI legislation attempt type of stories over the past year. This one was just an executive order from Biden administration saying basically that AI companies would have to submit some kind of a safety report on their models or their efforts, what they're building. It was honestly a little, so it wasn't exactly clear on like how it was actually supposed to work. But Trump is kind of signaling here that he's going to be friendly to AI companies, given who he's put in his cabinet. None of this is surprising to anyone, I would hope. yeah, there's not a whole lot to say here except that he's, basically signaling that he's going to be friendly to this type of technology. We'll see. We've got a story at the end that proves this to be very true. And then, yeah, so this is not the worst executive order he has written. But one thing is missing is any kind of replacement, right? He just canceled this. Yeah. I doubt we'll see a replacement of any kind of regulation. Not even regulation. An executive order isn't even regulation. You wouldn't call it that. But like any kind of yoke to put on the bull that is the raging bull that is AI at this point. So pretty interesting. Anything to add there, Mr. Australian guy, as you watch the world burn?
Yeah, I mean, not much to add. I mean, obviously they're partially doing this on the guise of, not hamstringing AI innovation, but I think obviously we're rather cynical about this administration and whether or not they are doing this for the greater of humanity or just a few fellow billionaires that have been investing in this kind of stuff for a while now. But it's there's, like you said, there's not much to say. It's like, oh, okay, what a surprise! Someone wants to get rid of regulation that was put in place by the former administration. I mean, it's like, a bit of it is like just like showcase kind of stuff. Just say like all the shit the other guy did, I'm pulling that out. We want to run America like a business, right? We want it to be the most profitable, and it's all for America and stuff like that. But I don't think that's how it's actually gonna work. But yeah,
we'll see.
We shall. All right. Next article we have is from infosecurity-magazine.com. So this one is titled "Multi-Cloud Adoption Surges Amid Rising Security Concerns." So this was an interesting one. I think a majority of what's covered in this article was from a 2025 report done by Fortinet on the state of cloud security report. That was released recently on the 15th of January. So this one is kind of explaining the adoption of, platforms and things like that cater to a multi-cloud approach, because we've seen an uptick from, I think, 71% to 78% of companies saying that they're adopting a multi-cloud strategy. That number seems pretty high, to be honest with you, to me. But we've kind of talked about it on the show before, whereas like those numbers I feel are a little skewed because people are like, oh, we use Office 365. And it's like, it
must be in Azure.
Yeah, it's like that's not quite the same, but I guess if you want to split hairs, you could say you're operating on Azure's infrastructure. But they also did talk about the 63% of organizations plan to increase their cloud security budgets in the upcoming year, which is not necessarily surprising, at least probably from Tim and I's perspective, being on a company that
for sure
has kind of a strong focus on cloud security. And then also talking about 90% of respondents favoring centralized dashboards that simplify policy management and threat visibility across cloud services. And then talks about, the adoption of things like cloud security posture management, or CSPMs, and cloud native application protection platforms, or CNAPs. I will say, man, this sent me down a rabbit hole to like remind myself what all these fucking acronyms actually mean. And there are so many of them. There's like, what is it? Like, there's CSPM, CNAP, CIEM is a new one, CASB. And so much of them seem like they do the same shit. But I guess that's kind of why you see a lot of the same vendor names or same product names in multiple pieces of these categories. So it makes sense they kind of have the
fucking,
it's
fucking
all
Gartner, man. Fucking Gartner.
Yeah, let's add a few more this year. That should be our goal. Make it a funny acronym. Make it be a funny word at least. But you know,
right.
I don't know. What's your input, Tim?
Yeah, so the numbers were surprising, but let's also remember that this is a state of the security report from Fortinet, which is a security vendor who is obviously has a cloud presence, has a cloud product, if you will, or a product that goes in the cloud at least. So obviously we can assume that the thing is that in this report, we don't get to see the report; we only get to see the results. So what were the questions that were asked? Were they leading? Were they leading questions? Like, because to me, you try to tell me that like 78% of organizations are in multiple clouds. I don't. We must be talking. We must be talking to the wrong people, because we definitely have talked to many people who are like, we're an AWS only shop, or we only do Azure, or we only But I mean, so I think that the percentage is kind of high. But then again, I mean, we haven't talked to every customer out there either, so I get it. The number, the 97% favoring centralized dashboards that simplify policy management and threat visibility. It's.
I wonder what vendor could do that. Maybe Fortinet.
No, I mean but that's a good point, right? Is that we were just talking about how the platformization and the consolidation of stuff, is something that rings pretty well with people, because even if people don't like vendor lock-in, people love the idea of having to only look at one place for all the data that they're going to need, regardless of how many vendors are under the hood supplying that data. They only want to look in one place for that data. And in a perfect world, they want to get insight. They want to get some kind of network insight or security insight out of that thing that they're looking at. So anyway, so 97% favoring centralized dashboards. I mean, I'm wondering who the 3% are. Like, no, I really enjoy having 10 windows to go look at.
Probably the gatekeepers of information, the people that don't want it.
Right?
Yeah.
I just love getting kept to my toes and having to correlate data between multiple dashboards. No, this is not surprising.
I mean, just a bit of glass half full, I guess, viewpoint on this, at least from the perspective of this being run by Fortinet. It says, based on feedback from 873 cybersecurity professionals. So it's a good decent number. I would say if you're telling me that they're cybersecurity professionals, that probably tells me that they are already, like, that already implies that they are at an organization that has grown to the size that they're operating in the cloud, and they need people that are cybersecurity focused in their job title, which says one thing.
Self-selects,
But at the same time, this is also Fortinet. Fortinet is a company, they work a lot at the enterprise level, but they also do very well in the SMB space. So that's right. This could be, obviously we don't know the landscape of those 873 respondents, who's where, but I'd like to be an optimist here and think positively, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, and this is of course a info security magazine, right? So this is gonna be this whole article and all of it's gonna be very cybersecurity focused. Yeah, I don't disagree with generally the findings of this article. I think we're seeing more multi-cloud than we did before, and that's just a trend that's going to continue. I don't at some point, unless you're really small, you're going to probably end up in multiple clouds and functionally actually in multiple clouds, not just I use 365. So and as you split that out, security does become more difficult, because you have to deal with the security policy in one cloud and then another cloud, and it's going to be the same policy. And a lot of the time, you can't build one policy and have it take effect in multiple clouds, because, hey, I've got to do NSGs over here, I've got to do security groups over here. They're the same, they do the same thing, but they're configured differently. So what you need, obviously, is something that's going to be able to do all of that. So,
surprise, surprise, it is complex.
All right, so we're going to cover this next one. It's a little bit of a black eye for ourselves and our company. Aviatrix. Chris and I work for Aviatrix. We know we've probably said that 1,000 times on this podcast by now, but I think it's doubly important that we say so before we cover this next story. We debated it, how much we wanted to get into it, but the truth is, at the end of the day, it's news. We're covering cloud news. And we don't want to yeah, we want to cover cloud news, and this was newsworthy. This was picked up a lot and put around by a lot of people. So let's talk about it. So it started with an article that was published by Wiz, the security vendor, which for what it's worth, Wiz is Wiz is also a cloud security vendor. So take that for what it's worth.
They fit right into the CSPM, CNAP. I think that their names can be across all those pretty much.
Yeah. So, I mean, most honestly, anybody who's listening probably has at least heard of Wiz by this point, Wiz.io. So Wiz put out a blog. Hold on, let me actually pop it open just because I want to be able to verify, speaks directly to it. So Wiz put out a blog on the 11th of January talking about a CVE that was published from a security researcher that actually contacted Aviatrix quite a while back, actually, to let us know about a vulnerability that Aviatrix had, CVE 2024-50603. Now, this one was bad because it was a full 10 on the CVE score. So every vendor, I think it's almost, honestly, it's not funny, but I swear it must be a rite of passage or something, because I think every major vendor out there that builds software has at some point hit the 10 on the scale, not like the what is it, the style goes to 11. I don't think anybody's made it to 11 yet, but but we're Spinal Tap,
the Spinal Tap of CVEs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we haven't found that one yet, but so Aviatrix got the dubious honor of joining the ranks of Cisco, Palo, Fortinet, all the big ones. But this was a particularly remote command execution vulnerability. Anyway, the blog mentions basically, I mean, honestly, it just says what the security researcher says, which is that there was a way to exploit the controller or Aviatrix controller in a way that you could do remote command execution. So you could install software on the box or something like that without escalating, or with escalation of escalating the authentication. So for what it's the Wiz blog goes. It's very, honestly, I feel like it's, and this is, I'm not saying this because I work at Aviatrix, but if I suggest that you go read the blog, it's actually pretty kind of Wiz marketing heavy. They're like, well, our software found this, and but the truth is the security researcher actually had published that just the day before, I think, or maybe even that morning, the exploit after the street date essentially had passed, and he had contacted Aviatrix, given us the details, and we had issued a patch and worked to help all the customers essentially that we could get patched and upgraded, and issue patches for the software, even back to because this was so big, Aviatrix even provided patches for software that's been out of support for a couple of years now. I think we went all the way back to 6.7 or something, because it was such a big deal.
Yeah, we did.
So, there's not much to say here. I think every major vendor at some point has a bad day like this, and I don't want to downplay it either. This is obviously a big vulnerability. I will say that, when Aviatrix was made aware of it, they did what they should have done. They contacted customers. They immediately worked on a patch. They contacted customers privately because it hadn't been published yet, to work on remediation steps, helping them, fix the network without any kind of impact as much as possible. And when the exploit was finally published, Wiz is reporting that there were people in the wild that were, essentially exploited with this code that was, put out. And I think, as far as I know, that's probably accurate. And the reason, but having done some research, the people that were ultimately had this, crypto miners or whatever backdoors installed on their controllers, hadn't patched. They hadn't upgraded. They hadn't patched. So, to my knowledge, Aviatrix was working with those customers, or has already by this point worked with those customers to do remediation, replacement of the controller, because with that type of an exploit, you just blow the controller away and build a new one, is my understanding. So we kind of took it on the jaw. I mean, anything to add there?
No, I mean, obviously this one, we have a little bit more context around than than what's out there publicly. But I will tell you, like, specifically as someone that was on the front line that was talking to customers about this and making sure they got patched and things like that. I think, like you said, every vendor, if you look through the known CVEs, right, there's all the big names are there. Everyone has these happen, right? If you operate under the guise that you're never going to have something get exploited, then that's the wrong approach to take. It's how you respond when it does happen.
Absolutely.
So we made sure that every patch that went out was non-service impacting. So it literally took like 2 minutes to patch something, and did not affect your data plane traffic or anything like that. So majority of customers were already patched before the public notice even went out to via Wiz and by the security researcher, right? So like I said, it's things like this are going to happen. Like it's you just let the response is what's most important, and trying to be unbiased here. It's I think we came out in a relatively good light for what it could have been, right? It could have been something much worse.
Yeah, and here's the thing. We report on the news all the time, and we report about competitors, we report about our own company, we report about basically anybody that's out there that has something to do with cloud and cloud technology. But this stuff that's happening, like exploits, hacking, people think this is happening all the time. Like it's not making it to the news, right? Like the amount of stuff that ends up in the news that we can report on is 1% of 1% of what's happening out there every single day. Like most of the time, most companies don't want anybody to know that this has happened, right? And so, there's ransomware. At one point I worked at a place that got ransomware. Like they were not ransomware. It was like a threat of a DDoS or something like that. And send us Bitcoin or we'll DDoS you or whatever. Like, and the company quietly took care of it. They had a mitigation put in place for it, whatever. But the cybercrime stuff, all of this, it's on the rise, man. We report on it more and more, and it's happening whether or not the news is out there about it. So just be aware that this is like another day in paradise. This happens all the time.
Okay. All right. Let's round it out with, I almost feel like we need a jingle for this at this point where we can play before we talk about it. So we have some more news from none other than OpenAI. So we've seen the announcement of the Stargate project. So I'll be honest, this is very hand wavy at this point. It's very kind of like, I don't know exactly what this means or what it's going to be, but basically it sounds like, with the incoming new administration and things like that, OpenAI along with other equity funders like SoftBank, Oracle, MGX, have basically started a new company called the Stargate project, which plans to invest over $500 billion over the next 4 years into AI infrastructure. It's funny because it says invest $500 billion over the next 4 years into building new AI infrastructure for OpenAI in the U.S.
Yeah, specifically OpenAI.
Yeah, which is weird a little bit, because then it goes into say that the key technology partners are ARM, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Oracle. So obviously, I guess those companies are leveraging OpenAI.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's.
But yeah, it's like I said, it's, talks about this idea that we'll closely collaborate and build and operate this computing system, and it talks about the existing relationship with OpenAI, NVIDIA, et cetera. But I mean, that's kind of it. The promise is that we're everyone's coming together to fulfill this prophecy, so to say, of AGI, right? But that's really all we know at this point. It says it's going to create. It was like like millions of jobs,
thousands of hundreds of thousands of American jobs. Now that
okay.
I want some receipts on that one right off the bat, dude.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's crazy, because we've been talking about how much AI is going to be taking jobs, but like this is going to be building jobs, like in the hundreds of thousands.
Oh,
it sounds
yeah.
like
We're going to need an HR. We're going to need a huge HR department for for all the AI.
Yeah, right. What if all these agents are just the ones that take these jobs? Like, there's no.
Yeah, man, hundreds of thousands of American jobs. Unless we're talking about building 1,000 data centers, I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Which, I mean, 500 billion, maybe.
And they're talking about reopening 3 Mile Island and investing more in nuclear technology too. I mean, you got to power these things. This is it.
This is the start of the end, folks.
This is it, guys. You heard it here.
It's finally happening. But yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe that'll offset all those jobs. But that's the thing is like,
what is the job?
I don't know what the job is. I don't know what the job is, but is it a job that will eventually be taken by AI at some point? Like,
I hesitate to say it because I'm wondering if this could be one of those jobs that Trump was talking about. You know, the ones that the immigrants were taking, but.
Yeah, well, don't worry. All of them will be gone by this point, right?
That's terrible. That's terrible.
It's disgusting. Anyways, anything else to add there, Tim?
Okay. I think this is hilarious. I think it's the most ridiculous thing. Like it's peak. I don't know what else to say. Like it's just peak, right? We're gonna magic $500 billion and we're gonna put it into a machine, and out the other end of it will come AGI, hundreds of thousands of American jobs, and the U.S. as the leader of the world again. So, step one, steal underpants.
Pretty much, dude.
I mean, step two, open AI.
Who knows?
Step three, all that $500 billion ends up in some billionaire's pocket, multiple billionaires' pockets.
Yeah. I mean, but we were talking about this before we hit record. Like, I wonder what the response is going to be from China, because we were talking about is it DeepSeek? Is that what it's called?
DeepSeek.
Yeah, because like they were already saying that they did the exact same thing with a couple $1 million, whereas we've funneled billions and billions of dollars into this. So, I mean, obviously,
take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, we don't know anything about that, what it actually is, and it could be, probably.
It's a straight lie because they just like it's running in probably a China telecom data center, which costs hundreds of millions of dollars, but we scratched that out because it wasn't related to the actual thing that they're doing. And it's amazing what you can accomplish with an inexhaustible supply of prison labor.
Well, who knows? Maybe that's where those jobs are going to go in the U.S.
It's scary, man. It's scary. This is the race. This is the new space race, the new moonshot that we're aiming for. Is the how quickly can we cook this entire planet? Okay. Anyway, I wanted to end on a hopeful note, but we keep ending with these goddamn AI stories.
Yeah, maybe next episode we should find something very happy where I'll tell you what, I'll end with something lighthearted. I learned the other day there's apparently a new apple coming out. They've genetically made a new apple.
Like
an
the one you
apple. Eat. Yes, like my friend put me onto this. He was like, oh, have you seen the new apples? Like, dude, I thought that those are done, bro. There's already so many, but no, there's a new one. I'll have to find a link and send it to you. It's like red on the outside and the inside.
Whoa.
Like, it's weird. Like, it looks like one kind of like solid thing even as you're eating it.
It's kind of weird, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably some GMO shit. Have we come around on GMOs? Are GMOs good now?
I
feel like everyone's like fearful of them, but like.
Well, I mean, there's still people that are scared of them. There's still people scared of GMOs, and I truly couldn't tell you like if they're good, bad, or ugly. But yeah, I'm sure we'll need a lot of GMOs when we're a lot of soy paste and things like that when we're in our corporate dystopia.
I wonder how RFK feels about the GMOs.
Yeah, we should ask. We should ask him.
It'd be a good take.
See if we can get him. Anyway.
Yeah, anyways, we'll wrap up. Thanks again for joining us for the fortnightly news from Cables to Clouds. If you want to have a look at any of these articles more in depth, have a look in the show notes. We have a link to a Google Doc where we post every article that we've talked about, as well as a few more. If you have any comments, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you, either anywhere you feel is appropriate, whether it be YouTube comments, social media, Blue Sky, anywhere out there. Tim, we'll put Tim's mailing address in there.
Yeah,
you can
my cell phone number.
His cell phone number, Social Security.
They already got that.
Where he went to elementary school, his favorite sports player growing up. You can try to guess his passwords, all that stuff. But yeah, with that, we'll take it away. We love you, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
See ya. Hi everyone, it's Tim, and this has been the Cables to Clouds podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe to us in your favorite podcast catcher, as well as subscribe and turn on notifications for our YouTube channel to be notified of all our new episodes. Follow us on socials at Cables2Clouds. You can also visit our website for all the show notes at cables2clouds.com. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.